The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in Northern California, what I consider to be a dreamland of a place to live. I've got another person who might disagree with me. He may say the dreamland is Florida. My old friend Jack Degraw. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Ralph?
Good. How are things in Florida? All is well, I hope.
Yeah, everything where I am, everything's good. I'm healthy, and so as long as you got your health, you're ahead of the game.
That's absolutely right, and people are misplacing wealth for health as a priority, and health comes first. Without health, there will be no wealth. So stay out of harm's way. We got a cure coming, a vaccine coming for this craziness soon, and stay healthy along the way, Jack. Jack, I invited you here today because, as you know, I am composing a book, and it is, I'll describe it to you. It's a unique selection of previously unpublished baseball stories by those both inside and outside of the game. How's that for a description?
Well, it covers everything.
All right. And I wanted to cover one of my, he wasn't a favorite of mine growing up, but he became a favorite of mine when he pleased my grandfather in the final days of his life. Joe Pepitone and the Yankees were the only game in town for my grandfather after the Giants and Dodgers moved, and he became an avid Yankee fan. He went back to when he was a kid. And tell us about the day that you were there and Joe Pepitone had the greatest day of his life.
Well, Ralph, it was May 18th, 1969. And in the first game of a doubleheader, Joe hit a 3-run homer off Andy Messersmith. And the Yankees won the first game 3-1 behind Mel Stottlemyre. And in the second game, in the bottom of the ninth, Joe hit a home run off Hoyt Wilhelm. And the interesting thing is I met Joe about 24 years later at the Yankee Fan Fest, and I reminded him of the doubleheader. And he said, Hoyt Wilhelm, first pitch was always a fastball. And I checked the newspaper clipping, and sure enough, the first pitch was a fastball.
Wow. He had a memory for it. Joe Pepitone was a very, very talented, underrated Yankee. And maybe you can tell me, when Mantle was coming to the end, they put him at first base. And who did they put in center field? Joe Pepitone. And he covered a hell of a lot of ground and was a very solid center fielder. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. Joe could play anywhere. I mean, he was a very talented outfielder. And the interesting thing is, Ralph, when Mickey Mantle hit his 500th homer, I believe it was Joe Pepitone's bat he was using.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny you mentioned Mickey Mantle, because there's a story in Joe's book entitled "You Could Have Made Us Proud," or something to that effect. He talks about the Yankees going up to play an exhibition game against Army, and it was what was the name of the academy up there?
West Point.
West Point, but it was located at Bear Mountain. Was it? No, that was a different trip I'm thinking of. Anyway, he went up with Mantle and allegedly got Mickey high for the first time in his life on cannabis. And if I'm not mistaken, Mickey Mantle hit a home run in that game and was oblivious to it all. And he jokes about that in his book. Joe Pepitone had a lot of demons, and he grew up in a rough neighborhood. Tell me about what you remember about Joe as in the early years.
Well, one of the things I always heard, Ralph, is his father, he loved Joe, but he used to show it in a way he used to beat him up.
Yeah, that's very lovable.
Yeah, that is very lovable. And Joe said to his mom, he said, I'd wish he'd die because, he treats us so bad. And he did. And I think Joe carried that with him for a long time.
The guilt and what have you.
Yeah. But I mean, there was one year, Ralph, Joe knocked in 100 runs.
Yeah. Yeah. And he went on, after leaving the Yankees, he went on to a terrific career. When I say a terrific career, a productive career. The Cubs played under Leo DeRocher, if I'm not mistaken, and they clashed.
Yeah, when he played with the Cubs, he was a fan favorite. And one of the stories I heard, the fans in the bleachers used to throw drugs to him, wrapped in like styrofoam or something. And Joe would stick it in the ivory and, and get it after the game.
That's a good boy. He kept it out of sight. All right, you gave me some nice memories. Talk about a little bit. You and Robert were doing a show for a while, and you were covering the Yankees. It came off season, not much to talk about. So I'm going to fill in a little bit for Robert and have you give me an analysis of what's going on in New York, Yankeeville.
Well, right now, Ralph, they're debating whether they're going to sign DJ LeMahieu, and they're also pondering what they're going to do with Gary Sanchez. I mean, if they keep him, I think he'll only make like $8 million. I say only.
You're right.
And I think they're trying to upgrade the catcher's position, but do you want to go out and spend that catcher from the Phillies now, JT Romeo, is it? Romato?
Relamato,
Yeah. And then they got Yadi Molina from the Cardinals. They're interested in him, too.
He's a little long in the tooth, I would say, but defensively, he's still got it. All the Molina brothers were classic defensive catchers. And how do you give up on a guy who hit that many home runs that early in his career?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, Ralph. He had a lousy year, but if you put in his production over 500 at-bats, he would have had 35 homers and 85 RBIs. And that's something you don't get out of too many catchers. I mean,
No.
It's not a good thing when Cole, your number one pitcher, maybe the best pitcher in baseball, or one of the best certainly, doesn't want to pitch to him or have him catch when he's throwing. It's a tough situation, but personally, I think they might stick with him for one more year.
Is he a candidate to be a DH?
I think, Ralph, he might be a little too young for that. And the Yankees, they have Stanton and they have all these other guys, which, with these contracts, Hicks. And it's like, they got everything locked up there for a good, 4 or 5 years at least. I think Stanton still got another eight years on his contract. So, I mean, you have to put these guys somewhere. And the big thing, Ralph, with the Yankees, I mean, they might, sign Tanaka. They got a team that's good enough to win. But these guys, and they've had it for the last 3 or 4 years. But the big thing, these guys, for whatever reason, when they get in the playoffs, they haven't produced. And you get guys like Mickey Mantle and Tommy Henrich and Hank Bauer and Whitey and Joe D. I mean, the list is endless. Bernie Williams, they come through in the playoffs. You can't do it all the time, but as of yet, these guys haven't done it at all. And so I think, these guys just got to step up and, do the job.
Okay. Tell me about looking back on Boone's 2 years as a Yankee. Would the Yankees have been better served to keep Girardi? Yeah, this is an opinion. This is no more than that. What do you think?
Well, I think the thing with Girardi, Ralph, is Girardi wasn't too high on the analytics. And Boone, follows the company line with the analytics. I mean, we've seen that in, game 2 of the playoffs against the Rays, when they started, Garcia, and then after one inning, they brought in Happ. And then we also seen that in the World Series. That's another story, too. But it's if you're going to start a guy, if you don't believe in him, why'd you even start him? Either start Garcia or Happ and let them ride it out. But it just seems the Yankees are so analytically, run by that's the way they run their team, and Boone follows that to the T. And it's changed. I mean, it's good in one way, but you don't get the factor, what you see with your eyes.
Okay. Tell me about Chapman and the enigma of Chapman and what's going to happen with him.
Well, I mean, the thing with Chapman, Ralph, he was, he could throw 105, 106, 102, 103, and now he's at 99 to 101. And there's so many guys who can do that now that, the wow factor isn't there anymore. And, these guys come up. I mean, they have pitching machines that throw over 100 miles an hour. So when you're facing 99 to 100, you've seen that before. These players have seen that before. So that you don't have the wow factor. If it's 103, it's a whole different thing. But 99, and he throws a lot of off-speed stuff now. His off-speed pitches are like 88, 89. So he just doesn't throw fastballs anymore.
Okay, he doesn't just throw fastballs. He hasn't lost that much off his fastball, though.
No,
okay.
but the thing is, the factor, like it used to be, oh wow, Chapman's coming in. It's like, well, there's a lot of guys now who can throw that hard, so it's not like, it's the wow factor it used to be.
Okay. Next question on my mind about the Yankees is Aaron Judge.
Well, I mean, the thing with him, Ralph, it's just staying healthy. And until he stays healthy, and Stanton and all these guys, I mean, they lift weights and everything, and they're always hurt. So, I mean, you have to think at some point, what's the difference if you're hitting the ball 430 feet or 530 feet? And these guys are always pulling muscles, and they're always getting hurt. I think a perfect example, you look at Luke Voit. He led the American League he led the majors in homers this year, but he slimmed down a lot. So he added some bulk, but he also slimmed down. And these guys like Judge and Stanton, I mean, they're always getting hurt, and it's getting to a point, it's ridiculous.
Well, Stanton they've called brittle for a number of years now. They're starting to hint that Judge may be just that. Is there talk of changing their training routine, maybe getting new trainers, new philosophy? Has that come up?
Well, they did get new trainers before last season, but with the COVID and everything, you really don't know how much of a difference that made. And I mean, the thing with Judge too, Ralphie, he's going to come up for a big contract soon. And it's like, you really want to give that guy a 6-7 year contract?
Well, that's a good thought. But,
with the injury?
A lot of these contracts are decided by how many butts can you put in the seats. Unfortunately, it's that way. He's a tremendous draw.
Oh, yeah. Fans love him.
Right. And I'm sure they may be thinking that the increase in fans because of him may end up paying for his contract in the long run. But, the game is changing in the sense that they're inhibited by the COVID, and they still don't know how many games they're going to be playing. They don't know whether or not there's going to be a DH in both leagues yet. Are they going to go back to the rule of when there's a tie in extra innings, you put a runner on second? Now, I think that turned off an awful lot of people. That particular rule didn't help.
Yeah, that was a pretty terrible rule. And then making the guys, pitchers throw to like 3 batters. And then I know why they did it in a 60-game season. You have all these teams in the playoffs, but there was even talk of adding more teams in the playoff. And then that just makes it a joke. Right.
The game has really become bastardized. I'm thinking back to the way things were, and a lot of it again is the pandemic, and it's not just baseball; it's all sports. They're playing football in a season where there were 4 or 5 pandemic COVID diagnoses in the last day or so in football that is apt to screw up their playoffs. So that's the way it is.
They got the Super Bowl coming down here in Tampa, and right now I think they're only going to let 20,000 fans in, and they even postponed the Gasparilla Parade that they've had every year for 100 years, and they usually draw over 100,000 people for that. So I don't know what they're going to do. We might not even have a Super Bowl, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. I feel sorry for the kids growing up in their prime, the players who are missing, and this will be another year or so of a reduced season, I'm sure. It takes development out of the play. You don't get it, and plus what they're doing to the minors is really sad. The Florida State League, is that being disbanded, or is it going to be a low A entry league? What's the story on that?
Well, the thing is, Ralph, I think they only eliminated 2 teams. What they're going to do now is basically like the Yankees, instead of high A, they're going to be low A. So the whole league is going to be like low A. And then instead of having all these, the Gulf Coast League, they're going to eliminate 2 or 3 teams, and they're still going to have a team playing over the complex, but you're going to get like 50, 75, 80 players who are just not going to, they're not going to be in the major league affiliates, and that's per team.
Well, this to an old minor league lover like myself, this really hurts.
Oh, I agree with you, Ralph. I mean, when I used to go see the Tampa Yankees, I mean, I'd go to 60 games a year, 55, 60 games a year. And I mean, the players lived in the complex by me, and they were like, they were part of the community and stuff like that. And you see these kids come up, and you get to be friendly with them and talk to them. I mean, it's something that, it's a great part of the game is going to be missing.
Yeah, it's nice to see these guys, as I did when I was the Topps representative, before they make it big, before they're affected and affected by wealth, by fame, all of this. Tell me a story or two about people that you've met who went on to good things in baseball, who weren't affected, who stayed the same, people that you can think of who, same old guy. You look back, didn't change him at all.
Well, I'll tell you, Ralph, Aaron Judge, I mean, all the players have been nice. There's maybe been one or two that, Aaron Judge was always a nice kid. Dylan Betances, I mean, I used to shoot hoops with him. I used to give him passes to come up to the gym, and he was always a great kid. And, there was a Yankee pitcher named Phil Koch.
I remember him well.
He pitched with the Tampa Yankees. And, the pitchers used to sit in the stands, and, I'd be sitting right behind them like in the – and, they'd be filming and charting pitches, and you get to talk to them. And I mean, there was talk of even Phil he was thinking he wasn't going to make it. And the nice story is, Ralph, the last time I seen him is after the Yankees won the World Series in 2009. And I was in Quiznos, and he walked in, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and he bought me a sandwich. We were talking about the World Series and stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. They were just good people, and they're the kind of people you cheer for.
Conversely, and I have to ask, not because I'm digging up dirt or anything, was there someone that big leagued you after they became big? After they made it?
The thing was, there was this guy, Jose Montero. And Ralph, he was the top prospect, and he was the nicest kid. He lived in my complex. And I remember when he was in, he used to play over the Hines. And he was always friendly. He'd wave to me, and we'd come over and talk. And, I'd give him photos I took. And then he got to the big leagues, and it's like his personality all changed.
He became big time.
Yeah, it was really hard to. And the thing is, he petered out soon afterwards.
Okay.
And it's a shame. It happens to them. But the thing is, Ralph, we got to remember they're kids. A lot of times, 18, 19, 20 years old. So, and with the Yankees, they get like, well, he's going to be the next this one and that one, and it doesn't always turn out. Phil Hughes was a great kid too.
It also, yes, I remember Phil Hughes very well. There was a kid that they, with the Yankees, who they coddled for a long time. He had been either hurt or went through a Tommy John surgery early on, and they coddled him. Do you remember?
Java Chamberlain.
Yes, Java Chamberlain. Yes. Sometimes you just got to throw them in the mix. And
I mean, he pitched down here in Tampa, and then he went to Toronto, then he went to Scranton, and like the last month of the season, he was with the Yankees, and he looked like the next big thing. And when the thing with him, Ralph, they made a reliever out of him in the last month, and then when he became a starter, he'd get on the mound and like he wouldn't get the ball and throw it. He'd like fumble around, and like he was very like it looked like he was very undecided. I mean, he still had a nice career, but they thought he was going to be a great starter.
Right.
Yeah.
Robert Denninger usually does this for you, and he does a much better job. So let me stop and give him a little credit. He's been a terrific analyst on the Yankee show with you. So
well, Robert does a great job.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize that and ask you my final question. Give me a hitting prospect and a pitching prospect for the Yankees that you think you have your eye on and you think might be a sleeper.
Well, of course, they got Debbie Garcia, and there's a couple others. There's Clark Schmidt, and there's one or two others that name escapes me now. But they got this guy, Jason Dominguez. He's like a 16, 17-year-old kid the Yankees have. And, I mean, Ralph, he looks like a grown man. I mean, he's huge. That might be a kid to watch in the coming years and stuff. And another thing, Ralph, I hope to hell they don't sign Brett Gardner and they give Clint Frazier a chance.
Yeah, nice. That's a good move. Gotta like Gardner. He gave him a lot of good years, and but it becomes a numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Brett when he played down here in 2006, I believe. He was a good player. He made the All-Star team, won a World Series, and he gave 100%. But I think it's time now. I'd like to see some young blood in there.
Good. Hicks, what's the status on him?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Ralph, he was batting third for most of this past season. And he gets on base a lot and he walks, but I mean, I think you want to see your number 3 hitter, knock in some runs. That's my big criticism with him. I mean, the Yankees have so many guys, hitting like 200 and stuff, but I mean, it just gets to a point where it's all or nothing at all, and you get in the playoffs, and it's a hard way to win games.
Yeah. Hey, Jack. What a great analytical job you did, and you gave me some good peppy memories, and I'm going to feature it in my upcoming book, and I'm just so happy that you're a member of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
Well, I mean, thank you for the opportunity, Ralph, and I'm going to send you that old Joe Pepitone article.
Oh, I'd love that. I'll put that on the wall right near my grandfather's brass U.S. Post Office, Mount Kisco number 1. He was a postman in the 1930s. He was the first postman in Mount Kisco, New York. And he's the guy who he was everything to me in terms of the greatest grandfather alive. And my introduction, he'd take me to the Polo Grounds when I was 4.5 years old. And I remember 1951, I went to the Polo Grounds with my pop before Willie was called up. And
okay.
And then again later in the year after he was called up. And just great memories of my grandfather explaining the game. Take 2 and hit to right. Stuff like that. Hit them where they ain't, he'd tell me, a wee Willie Keeler quote. I miss those days. I miss him. And thank you for bringing it back to me a little bit.
Well, I'm glad to do it, Ralph. And isn't it funny, like, 50 years later, that a game I went to meant so much to your grandfather. So that's
we have a hook that will connect us for a lifetime, Jack.
Well, that's great, Ralph. And good luck with everything.
All right, my friend. We'll do it again real soon. Next time you do it with Robert and a little spring training show. How about that?
Sounds good. And if, Robert's listening, let's get back on the ball, Robert. I miss doing the show with you.
All right. Be well, my friend, and happy trails. What can I tell you? You've been a great friend to me.
Well, ditto, Ralph. Thank you.
All right, Jack. Thank you for listening, everyone. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Happy trails, everybody.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.